This preview brought to you by Harness Racing Victoria.
Adam Hamilton joining you from tab.com.au to have an in-depth look at this terrific meeting coming up at Melton's Tabcorp Park in harness racing. What an exciting time for harness racing at the moment. Some of the good horses coming back in Victoria. Last night out at Melton we had the Horse of the Year awards, and the star of the show, Caribbean Blaster, took out the Victorian Horse of the Year, deservedly so. There'll be a lot more talk about him and a wrap-up of that in the gig on Monday night. But the good news about Caribbean Blaster is that he is just around the corner from a racetrack return. He trialled really well at Melton last Monday night, winning that trial in a 55.8 last half, and he's scheduled to resume in a free-for-all at Melton next week. May go to the Queensland Championship and then hopefully over to New Zealand to be one of a number of Australian representatives in that New Zealand Cup. Well, he's not in action tonight, but we've still got a really good program to look at Melton, and there's 9 races, so we don't start really early. 6:07 is the opening event, and let's get into the preview. We have got a $25,000 jackpot going into the Big Six tonight. That starts on race 3. We'll tell you more about that when we start previewing that third event. But we'll get underway now with the opening race for the Trotters. Now, this is a tricky race to sort out, and as a result, I'm going to look for a little bit of value here. Abertall is a trotter who I think has always shown the sort of ability to suggest that he can get through the grades and eventually end up in free-for-all trotting company. He sort of emerged from a little bit of a form slump. I loved his run here last time. He finished off the race very, very well at Melton in at least as strong a race as this. It's 22.40 metres. He's drawn the back row. He seems to like being held up and coming with that one big run late. So in the opening event, I'm going for Abertall. There's no question that the Brent Lilly team is on the up at the moment. They've had a really good last 6 to 8 weeks, including a Breeders' Crown Quinella in one of the trotting finals. Abertall, particularly on an each-way basis here. Rodney Petroff driving for Brent Lilly. To beat Michael Thomas, who not sure we'll ever get to see the best or the sort of ability that we thought we might have as a young horse from Michael Thomas, but he's working back into some sort of form. The last outing was pretty good. He's not exactly foolproof and he's not overly consistent, but this, anywhere near his best form, would be a race that he'd be ultra competitive in. Not exactly sure what to make of Bryland Crescent. Looked to be on the up and really going places maybe 6 or 8 months ago. Form has been a little bit indifferent of late. Does have good gate speed but has a wide draw to overcome. David Aitken off one of the best seasons of his training career. He takes a drive as well, but Bryland Crescent does have to come from the outside front row draw. And then Attigo Lily has had a really good campaign. Ashley Matthews taking the drive for trainer Tina Riddis, and Attigo Lily is certainly good enough to be competitive here. But in the opening event, I'm pretty keen on Abertall on an each-way basis. We'll need a genuinely run race. The ingredients are there for that, and I think Abertall each way. 11 to beat 5, 7 and 10 in the first of the 9 races at Melton's Tabcorp Park tonight. Let's move over to race 2. This is one of a couple of heat and final races being run tonight, and it's good when we get to see them in the lead-up races, because basically the 2 key runners in this race, Jazz King and also Monica Mann, came through the same qualifying heat. Now, Jazz King was very good winning it. I want to tell you a little bit about this horse. As a youngster, he looked terrific when trained by Ron Pocock. He's really nicely bred. He looked to be going places. I remember a race at Melton where he did the work up on the speed. Caribbean Blaster was unable to run him down. Obviously, Caribbean Blaster has developed into an elite level Grand Circuit horse. Jazz King went through a phase in his career where he looked to be pretty much washed up. But since going to the Sean Kittle stable, Michael Bellman's been doing the driving. It's really worked for Jazz King. Well done to Sean for turning him around. He's got renewed zest. He's got really good gate speed. And I think Monica Mann's probably at least as good as him ability-wise, but Jazz King has got that gate speed and a slightly better draw to be able to control the race. So Jazz King, on the basis of the draw, with a fair bit of confidence, if he uses that gate speed of his, Michael Bellman, and he's driving in tremendous form at the moment. He's a real example of how hard work can pay off, Michael Bellman. He's getting the absolute best results out of his career right now. Jazz King to work forward, use the draw, control the race. Monica Mann is so exciting. 2 terrific wins, 1 win before a break, back with a really good win, and then the run behind Jazz King in the qualifier was tremendous. On every measure, it was at least as good a performance as Jazz King, but as I said, the barrier draw and the gate speed of Jazz King just leans me his way. Now, Jasmine Sheffield's an interesting runner. Nothing too exciting about the first up run, but the form from Jasmine Sheffield in some pretty good races last campaign, albeit from batter draws, was good enough to say that she could be very competitive here. And Rosa Mack's an interesting one. Formerly trained by Nat Rasmussen and when she was partners with Grant Dixon up there in Queensland. As a youngster, Rosa Mack came down and won one of the feature Australian gold races from memory at Menangle. Hasn't been able to go on. She's not an overly big mare, but Lisa Miles seems to have rejuvenated Rosa Mack in recent times, and she's certainly got the gate speed to be up on the pace and very, very competitive from barrier 3. But I'm going with Jazz King for the reasons mentioned, predominantly the gate speed. 6 to beat the very promising Monica Mann. Next best 12, Jasmine Sheffield, and then 3, 6, 7, 12 and 3 in race 2. Let's go to the third event. This is the Claimers final. We had 3 qualifying heats of this race last week, and this is the race that starts off the big 6 of the night. So our reminder that tab.com.au is getting right behind the big 6 tonight. There is a jackpot of $25,000 going into it on races 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. I'm going to have a look at this race now, and a Braveheart Stride, I thought, first start for Emma Stewart and Clayton Tonkin was absolutely terrific, winning the qualifier here last week. It was the last race, did all of the work outside of the leader, looked to be in a bit of trouble halfway down the straight, but really, really dug deep. Nicely bred horse, new to the team. The team has had success with this family before, and I think Braveheart Stride looks to be perhaps the one in the absolute peak form at the right time in this race, and also from barrier 5 gets a chance to control the race again, most likely outside of the leader, but who knows, maybe even Michael Stanley, who has really clicked with the Emma Stewart and Clayton Tonkin horses, he might get serious and try and have a dip for the lead here. Braveheart Stride, best of the qualifying winners last week. Top tip for mine to repeat the dose. It is a good race though, plenty of chances. Braveheart Stride gets a nod on top. Friday lunch, one of a couple of Tasmanian visitors here. Didn't really have much luck at a crucial stage, and yeah, I think going back on the race, maybe driven a little bit more confidently, could have gone pretty close to winning here. Josh Duggan taking the drive on Friday lunch. Gate speed, it didn't show as much gate speed as the Tasmanians told us to expect last week. Wasn't able to get to the front, and that sort of changed the race a fair bit. Should show enough gate speed to lead and potentially take the trail and look for a sprint lane run this time. It does look the main danger. I thought Thirsty Mac was really good first up from a spell. Got back, really charged home, probably just peaked on the run in the last 100 metres or so in the qualifier. And next best Pacific Soul, just a great drive last week. Got around, dared to try something different in the middle stages, took control of the race, and despite spending that mid-race petrol, was simply too good for them and raced away to win easily. Inside of the back row, well, it might be a good draw, it might be a tricky draw. Probably looks a leader's back at best scenario, which would be great. A 3 back on the inside, which could be potentially tricky for Pacific Soul. I'm pretty keen though on Braveheart Stride. I'm going 5 to beat 1, 11 and 8 in the first leg of the Big 6, race 3 at Melton tonight. Let's move over to the fourth event now, and this race is very tricky. It starts off our quaddie tonight, and really it all revolves around Shake It Mama. She's a former brilliant juvenile. Emma Stewart and Clayton Tonkin's team are in terrific form at the moment, but there is that element of taking her on trust. You might look at her form and say, how the heck can anybody be tipping her on what she did last campaign? Clearly, she just didn't come back. She must have had issues. She mustn't have been right. She raced a mile below her best, but she was one of, if not the best 2 and 3-year-old fillies that we had in Victoria in those respective seasons. She's gone to the trials at Ballarat recently and run some really, really quick times there. those trials at Ballarat have been really good form references for races. An example of that being stablemate Bollinger Baby most recently at Melton, and Mr. 1-2 as well. So there's an example of the trials. Shake It Mum has done enough at the trials to say that she should be on song for a really good performance. She's got good gate speed, but the argument could be that she's been at her best in recent times, driven sit sprint. I'm going to go with her. It's not an overly strong race. Her best form would probably see her waltz to the front and absolutely dominate. Shake It Mum are on top. Chrissy Alford taking the drive for Emma Stewart and Clayton Tonkin. Now, Narra Operative. Gee, a really, really good run from Narra Operative to win 5 starts back. The second was tremendous, 4 starts back. Then a couple of slightly disappointing runs in races not run to suit, and then a really good performance here last time out. I'm popping it in for second, Narra Operative. Just going to need that little bit of luck to win, though. GK Galleon was superbly driven to win a pretty good country race last start. Did get the inside run, but finished off the race really well for Michelle Manning. Grant Campbell takes a drive. And Fearless Leader was a really good first-up performance here, went second. Then went to the bush last time and only just got the prize over Bronze Destiny. Had a really good run in transit, and if you can win and be disappointing, then Fearless Leader probably fitted that category. Maybe a little bit of the second-up syndrome. Fearless Leader is a stablemate to the favourite here and the one to beat in Shake It Mama. Ian McMahon, good to see him back at the races and taking the drive for Emma Stewart and Clayton Tonkin here. I'm going for their stablemate, though, Shake It Mama. A little bit on spec and reputation, but the trial buoys me from Ballarat. 4 to beat 6, 11 and 10 in race 4. Now we go to the feature race of the night, and this is the Cinderella Stakes for the mares, and Broadway's Best is really the mare we're focusing on. What an enormous drop back in grade for this one-time champion mare. Going to have a look at the fixed odds market first, then I'll take you back to her performance against Bitter Bliss, if you don't mind, here last week. Broadway's Best is the $1.90 fixed odds favourite. Yes, she's got the back row draw barrier 10 to contend with, but boy oh boy, she's got some class over these. Better Give It looks to be emerging from a little mini form slump, like the last couple of runs. She's the other class mare at $4.60. Victor's Delight at $8 has got to come from the wide draw. And Bollinger Baby, the nicely bred mare, first up for Emma Stewart and Clayton Tonkin. She won pretty well in a much easier race at Melton a couple of weeks ago. She's kept safe at $8. And then the value runners, Donegal Delight, who'll need the speed on and the right drag in the race at $14. And Little Red Cloud, who dive-bombed an easier field to win last time out. She too is a bit of an opportunist who cannot be dismissed. That's your fixed odds market, Broadway's Best at $1.90. So Broadway's Best is dropping back from 2 runs against Bitter Bliss and Smokin' Up and Company. Here's her performance last week against Bitter Bliss. Bitter Bliss is powering to the lead out 3 wide. Now look at Broadway's Best. She's stuck behind traffic here. Forget the fact Bitter Bliss wins easily. There's Broadway's Best in those light blue colours looking to see daylight. Here's Dan's call.
Bitter Bliss. Scotty Stewart's hardly moved. Now he shook him up and he's raced away. Bit of Bliss. He's a superstar. He wins by 15. Melpark Major second. Broadway's Best third. Close fourth. Jukebox Music or I'm Barney Rubble. Then...
Oh, I mean, let's put that in perspective. Bitter Bliss is one of the best pacers in Australasia. In anyone's book on ability, he'd be in the top 5 or 6 horses in Australasia. Melpark Major is closing on $1 million in stake money, a former Victoria Cup winner. And there's Broadway's Best, held up in traffic, got clear. Chris Elford switched her back to the inside and she flew home late. In a few more strides, she beats home Melpark Major, and with a clear run, she probably finishes a very clear second to Bit of Bliss. She drops back to taking on her own sex. The one question mark is, can she still own a race, even though it's a big drop in grade? And what I mean by that is, can she drop back to a race where she's the one they're all watching? She'll probably have to come around and sit outside of the leader. Can she still do that in the twilight of her career? Surely she can, on what we saw from her in a much, much better field last week. I'm going for Broadway's Best on top to beat Better Give It, who I really liked the signs from in her last couple of runs. She is tough. She can do a little bit of work and still be there at the finish. So number 10 on top to beat Better Give It, number 9. Donegal Delight is racing consistently, but She's very, very clearly a complete opportunist. She needs the right drag into the race. If she gets it, and if the speed is on, she can be finishing strongly. And as I mentioned on the run-through, Donegal's Delight at $14 and Little Red Cloud at $15, I thought were the two best value runners in the race. Little Red Cloud's drawn nicely, but she will need the right sort of coil-up sit and and to sprint strongly at the finish. Broadway's Best, my bet of the night, number 10 to beat 9, 11 and 4 in race 5. That's the feature, the Cinderella Stakes. Now we move to race 6, third leg of the quaddie here. This is a really interesting race, and it's one where, well, I guess in a lot of the races I've been talking about the Emma Stewart and Clayton Tonkin stable. Well, this is a race where they completely dominate it and hold the key to it. Mr. Sheedy is a fascinating runner here. First up from a spell. Gareth Hall from Sky and I have had a little bit of banter over the last 12 months. I believe that Mr. Sheedy has got the potential to end up in some really, really good races. I must admit, last campaign he didn't quite fulfil the expectations that I had of him. Depends how he's come back to racing here. The trials look really, really good at Ballarat for his return. And I think on class and potential, he is the one to beat, and that he has got a lot more upside to him than he has his stablemate, Mr. 1-2. Now, Mr. 1-2 was a real eye-catcher first up back in the Emma Stewart and Clayton Tonkin stable 2 starts ago. And then he dropped back into a race that he was able to control, and he won really, really well here last week. Look, he's fit and in form. He has got an inside back row draw, which could be a bit of a concern. Scratchings here are numbers 1 and 2, so making out becomes the pole marker, and I very much doubt that he would be wanting to hold the lead or able to hold the lead. So it might put Mr. 1-2 in a tricky spot. So I'm going for Mr. Sheedy. First up, on the score of class, Maddie Craven taking the drive for Emma Stewart, which is interesting. They're certainly mixing up their drivers at the moment. Michael Stanley staying aboard Mr. 1-2. Excitus in the City is an interesting runner. He was absolutely airborne and doing some incredible things without even winning all the time about 6 weeks ago. Maybe those efforts have taken their toll a little bit on him. Tonight will tell us more. He comes into barrier 2 now, and he comes into consideration for mine, as does Cut for an Ace, who finds it hard to win but just keeps on running good races from tricky positions and still running really good times on the clock. I'm going for Mr. Sheedy, number 10, to beat the stablemate, Mr. 1-2. Next best, Excitus in the City, and then 5, Cut for an Ace. 10, 8, 4 and 5 in race 6. We go to race 7, which is another of the features on the program tonight. And here it's terrific to see the return to racing of Chancellor Cullen. So last leg of the quaddie, Chancellor Cullen will be a very, very warm favourite here. Now let's dig deep. He hasn't raced since early December last year. He won the McInerney Ford over at Gloucester Park in Perth and looked to be headed towards a win in the Golden Nugget. He had some issues, clearly some injury issues around that race and after it. He hasn't stepped out since that race where he ran 4th in the Golden Nugget and was clearly below his best on the night. That was on the 8th of December last year. He's won 8 of his 11 starts in Australia for Dean Braun, and he has a win over Caribbean Blaster. Not just a win, a dominant display when he led. Caribbean Blaster sat outside of him and was unable to beat him. We'll talk more about him shortly. The replay that I want to have a look in this race, though, is Mo2 Crusader, running 3rd to Bit of Bliss. I'm going to tip Mo2 Crusader on the score of form and fitness, although there's a little question mark on him as well. I'll tell you more soon. Look at him finishing off this race, Mo2 Crusader. Yes, he's got a big head start on Bit of Bliss, but this was 2 starts back for Bit of Bliss, and we saw what Bit of Bliss did when he stepped out next time. Let's pick up Dan's call. That's Mo2 Crusader in the blue, white and red in the middle of the track.
Bit of Bliss blows them away. Bit of Bliss has won it. Smoking Up has run 2nd. 3rd's close. Mo2 Crusader maybe from a wall of horses. Broadway's Best was a good run.
Yeah, look, I think that's tremendous form for a race like this. It's an easier race, there's no question about it. He does have a 10-metre handicap to overcome, Mo2 Crusader, but I think he's going to be good, backable each way odds. Now, what's that little query I spoke about? Standing start form. I can't find any. Still, he's a former Kiwi. He would have had good education over there as a younger horse without necessarily racing from a stand. And Karen Manning is a great conditioner. She would have given him plenty of practice. And to be honest, I doubt that he would be appearing in these standing start races if they didn't think that he had a good path ahead of him in some of the Country Cup races. Maybe like a Kilmore Cup, and who knows, if he can continue to step up, maybe even he might contest a race like the Hunter Cup. I'm going to go with him on an each-way basis, Motu Crusader. Now, Chancellor Cullen will completely dominate the betting. If he steps well from the standing start and finds his way to the front, then he's probably going to win. He went to the trials at Melton on Monday night. Now, he won that trial, but all the reports I've had were that he was good without getting carried away. It wasn't a stunning trial. It wasn't a Caribbean Blaster-like trial there on Monday night. So there is that little question mark on him after the long spell. I'm going to go Motu Crusader at the value to beat Chancellor Cullen. Other interesting runners in the race, Our White Knight, one of a couple of, or three Brett Cargill runners in this race. And his form just looks okay on paper, but he's got a really good standing start record through the Country Cups. I wouldn't be surprised if he stepped well, found his way to the front here, and then it'll be interesting. He'll get into a position where he can really make his presence felt in this race. And another of Brett Cargill's, I am worried about the 20-metre handicap for Jack in Flight, but boy, oh boy, he's a class horse in a race like this when he's right. He's been fitter for 2 runs back from a spell in unsuitable races behind Bit of Bliss. He'll appreciate getting away from a horse like Bit of Bliss and smoking up and getting back to the standing start, but the 20-metre handicap certainly will be an issue. Ripper race. Great to see Chancellor Cullen back at the races, but at the short odds, I'm going to go around him and go with Motu Crusader, just hoping that he steps away nicely early. 10 to beat the returning star in Chancellor Cullen. Next best, 5 and 11. 10, 2, 5 and 11, and another of the features, the Gamelite tonight at Melton. 2 races more to look at. The Trotters go around in race 8 tonight, and I'm looking forward to having something on Star Gun here. At his best, I think he's better than the Trotters he takes on tonight. I think he probably came back to the races and needed a little bit of conditioning with a few runs. He's had 3 of them now. Not too much to get excited about the first up run, but he's built on it. And I think if you saw the performance last time out, it had future win written all over him, Star Gun. He's not blessed with a lot of gate speed. Maybe he can hold his position, and it will be important over the sprint trip, the 1,720 metres. We know he's tough. We know he's reliable when he's in form, and I like him tonight on an each-way basis. Number 2, Star Gun for me. To beat He's a Boy Star. Wow. What a win. I didn't think he was good enough to win a race like that last week. He's a Boy Star, but not only did he win it, he controlled it, and he actually treated them like B-graders behind him. He does return to mobile racing. I think he's probably stronger than he is fast, so the short trip may not suit him. But seeing is believing, and I thought he was really good last week. He's a Boy Star. Next best, 10 to Don. There's a lot of good judges tipping him tonight. He'll be a short price favourite. He's an old-timer. He's racing in tremendous form. He is a lone back row runner, and he's got a nice finish to him. When he can settle in his races, that's the key. I wonder whether they'll set him alight and put him into the race even though he's a lone back row runner tonight. He's got a big chance, but I don't want to be backing him at short odds 10 to Don. He does find it hard to win these days. Maori's Pocket absolutely flew home last week. Catching Maori's Pocket on its best form can be a little bit of a trick, but again, last week's run was terrific, and a repeat of that would see Maori's Pocket right in the finish. I'm going for Star Gun, though. Pretty keen on an each-way basis in race 8 tonight. Last race of the night is another of the heat and finals, and a couple of up-and-coming paces in action here. By far the best heat was the one that Nimble Jack contested, I thought, in the build-up to this. Really liked this member of the Glenn Douglas team. Darryl Douglas takes a drive. Super tough win. Dropped back a lot in grade. Only runs across from New Zealand so far have all been really encouraging. A couple of them in much, much better races than this. I'm going for Nimble Jack. Thought the run in the heat was absolutely terrific, so not even perturbed really by the wide front row draw. Hoping for something around that $2.50 mark tonight for Nimble Jack. Metro Mint, loved the heat win, big improvement. Took off with, had a nice run, but did pull out and make a sustained 3-wide run and hold off a couple of more fancied rivals in the heat. On the up. Drawn better, starts from the pole tonight. If it can show the gate speed to use that draw, it should be very, very hard to beat. Batterwitz was okay without getting carried away in the heat. There's no doubt he's a nice, honest pacer. I don't think he's any star, but I've popped him in for third. And Kensington Palace, really good performance, but used a better draw to control the race and win well in the heat last start. Does have to come from outside of the back row. Josh Duggan, geez, a young driver really going places, Josh, but he's going to have to produce a little bit of magic from outside the back row draw tonight. Scratchings, as you can see, number 1 and 6, so Metro Mint goes into the pole, but I'm very keen on Nimble Jack to finish up. 7, 2, 8 and 11 for me in the final event tonight. Let's come back and have a look at my summary of the meeting now. The fixed odds are out and you can get $1.90 for Broadway's Best. That'll do me. I think dropping back to her own sex means that she should be dominant tonight. Yeah, as I said, that only one little question mark is she's in the twilight of her career, and has she got the strength that she had in the absolute height of her career? Tonight will tell, but on what we've seen against the free-for-allers, she should be too good. Race 5, number 10, Broadway's Best, a better than night. And with Chancellor Cullen being a hot favourite in the Gammalite Race 7, I thought the value was number 10, Motu Crusader for Kerrin Manning and Grant Campbell. So the best, Race 5, number 10, the value, Race 7, number 10. And my suggested quaddie tonight, in the first leg, I'm going to go a little bit wide here with numbers 4, 6, 10 and 11. 4, 6, 10 and 11. Shake It Mama holds the key for me, but I'm still going to pop in a few for insurance with that question mark over her. Then I'm going Broadway's Best, 1 out, number 10 in race 5. In race 6, we're going to try and cut it down here and just pop in Mr. Sheedy, Mr. 1, 2 and Excite Us in the City, numbers 4, 8 and 10. And then in the last leg, just looking for a bit of value with me having that little question mark over Chancellor Cullen. So we'll go wide and pop in numbers 2, 3, 5, 10 and 11. That will cost you $60 for 100%, or of course, if you want to spend a little bit less, $30 for a 50% slice. Good program coming up. The highlights, certainly the Cinderella Stakes with Broadway's Best and the return to racing of Chancellor Cullen, one of the potential stars of Victorian harness racing in the Gammalite Race 7. Terrific program. All gets underway tonight at 6:07 with the first of 9 races. Good luck if you're getting involved at Melton's Tabcorp Park tonight, and the Tab fixed odds will be up on each race around 10 minutes or so before them. Already that fixed odds market's up on race 5, the Cinderella Stakes. Enjoy the program tonight and good punting.
This preview brought to you by Harness Racing Victoria.